I need a minute, folks. I need a minute before I'm about to go on the absolute tear of a rant that I'm about to do. I just need 1 second, everybody. Okay. Got that second. Thank you. Mets fans, or whoever you're a fan of, it's your boy Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest post-game segment as the Metropolitans falter today in a walk-off fashion to the Tampa Bay Rays by a final score of 7-6. This game wasn't only one of the worst showings we have seen from the Mets yet this season from their pitching staff, but was easily one of their worst series as a whole so far this year. Probably the worst series they've had since going 0-5 this season. The Mets still have yet to win a single game in Tampa, which they have not done now since 2015. And newsflash, including today's series, the Mets have been there multiple times since 2015, yet they had nothing to show for it against a depleted Rays roster that not only got every single walk imaginable, but every single stolen base imaginable. Folks, I have a lot to say on this game. We're going to break things down inning by inning, innings 1 through 9, what transpired, what led the Mets to losing in this walk-off fashion. But before I do anything else, spam those L's in the live chat right now. If you're watching on replay in the comments down below, let me know your biggest takeaway from this heartbreaking loss down below and this series loss, this series sweep as a whole. Everybody continue to let me know, and do not hold anything back, folks. I want to see all your initial reactions. To everyone watching on Twitter, thank you so much for being in here as well. Make sure that like, that follow button, that retweet button, but know that I will only be interacting with our live viewers here on YouTube per usual, everybody. And again, I have a lot to say. I have a lot to break down. To say I'm frustrated is an understatement. I'm absolutely about to go scorched earth on this team after being swept the way that they were yet again today against the Tampa Bay Rays. But knowing that walks and stolen bases were single-handedly how the Rays won this ball game is why I'm beyond frustrated. For a Mets team that entered today's game leading all Major League Baseball, or right around there in walks per 9, walks as a whole this season, and not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, 9 effing walks! 9 walks this Metropolitan pitching staff had today, 6 of them from Luis Severino, and I've loved Sevy, everything he's provided so far this season, but the walks are a big bugaboo. They're a big no-no. We have a lot to break down on what is going on now, not only with the walks through the roof once again, stolen bases, you get a stolen base, you get a stolen base, you get a stolen base. You think Oprah Winfrey's out there throwing out these stolen bases like pieces of candy or a giveaway because of how frequent they happen for a Rays team. Just to enlighten you all, in case you somehow missed it, if you didn't watch the game, let me tell you right now, folks, the Mets gave up a whopping 7 stolen bases, including not only the game-tying run, but ultimately a Harrison Bader dive in the outfield that I'm still trying to comprehend why he decided to make that play, attempt that play, ultimately scores the game-winning run as they walk it off there in extras, folks. This is after the Mets took the lead again in the 10th inning by not a final score, but at the time it was 6-5. This Mets team, they battled plenty offensively today, but they also had a boatload of opportunities with runners in scoring position. They had boatload of opportunities with at least 2 guys on, and they did not get nearly the job done you'd hope for. Pete Alonzo was far and away the Mets' worst hitter today. He is a walking nothing burger when it comes to what you're getting on the offensive production. He's now 0 for what? He's at least 1 for his past 35 or so. Pete Alonzo in Tampa, again, the native from the area, had nothing to show for whatsoever. Where's the moxie that we got from Kristen Scott yesterday? Another Florida native. Nothing to show for it here in this series for Pete Alonzo. He was absolutely brutal. We'll get into Pete and his struggles and how concerning are they for the Mets, if any, at this point in the season, everybody. But if you haven't already, make sure to smash a like and subscribe button as your first chime in, folks, and continue to let me know your initial raw thoughts to the Mets losing in an embarrassing fashion, pathetic fashion, a frustrating fashion in many ways, more than one, which is why we're going full rant here for tonight's show. AZ, thank you so much for the $2 holla. All I know is pain. LL Mets in Tampa is a gimme. It really is. Thank you so much for the donation, AZ. I appreciate that. Big takeaways, Frank the Tank could steal bases against the Mets. That's how you know how bad it is when you get someone of that nature to potentially steal bags too, folks. Holy shit, I'm pissed off. I'm sorry, guys. Again, profanities, everybody, for my kiddos that are watching, for my parents that are new here. I do curse every now and then, especially after a frustrating loss. I apologize in advance. I'm just giving a warning to anyone that truly is trying to be wary for the kids or anything like that. But I have so much to say and so much to break down. You can't get too emotional about this team. Richard, it's really difficult. It's really difficult for some fans like myself at times. We try to stay as even-keeled as we possibly can. But you know what? When you're a diehard fan at the end of the day, when you watch every single game, and when you're in my position where you cover them for a living now, there's no way to avoid the Mets even if I wanted to. So Of course, after you were swept in embarrassing fashion the way that the Mets were today, I'm going to go out of my way and let you know how I feel about it. I'm going to break down the game. I'm going to tell you how frustrated I am with the club. And when Diaz gives up his first bomb in a save situation where the Mets are blowing the save for the first time since May 22nd, a lot of things, again, did not go in the Mets' favor today. But even when they had things working, even when you had a bullpen game after Pepio's taken out of the game because Marte hits him with a liner with bases loaded, no outs, you can't score more than just a run or two there. You know, the Mets had multiple opportunities today to score with runners on second, third, 2 outs or less, and they did not pounce nearly as much as I would have liked to. And when Diaz gave up a home run on an expected batting average of 230, again, Randy got that out. That isn't even a home run in half the ballparks in Major League Baseball, and if you're wondering if that's true or not, check it out. Baseball Savant has all the info there for you folks. This one. In the first, Starling Marte with a walk. Lindor with a no-doubt piss missile to right. A 2-run ding-dong off of Pepio, and that is exactly in Lindor's wheelhouse. He loves those pitches down in the zone to rip for homers. He does exactly that. The Mets are off to a 2-0 lead, and I gotta be frank with you all, and I'm not just saying this because the Mets lost. I was 100% going to say this regardless of tonight's outcome. I firmly believe the Rays were going to make this a tough ball game. When the Mets have had early leads of recent, has not went in their favor. You know, it just hasn't. And that, again, was unfortunately the case here today for the Mets. Got off to an early 2-0 lead, which, again, you're thinking, oh, great, this is awesome. It doesn't last long, because in the bottom of the first, Yandy Diaz gets on via walk. Palacio with a double. Palacio struck out. Paredes with a double. Then we see Randy with a strikeout. Rosario K ends it. So Sevy strikes out 3 there that we see in the first. Thankfully, he doesn't allow any runs, but that wouldn't last long because it's kicked off by some poor defense from Brett Beatty and then Luis Severino not knowing how to command the zone whatsoever. As we break down further, Pepio strikes out the Mets side. The first time the Mets have went down in order being struck out of the side in an inning this season. And the bottom of the second, Calerio with a walk absolutely torched the Mets. This schmuck, Calerio, I have no clue who he was. Again, that's shame on me for being a casual, not knowing everyone in the farm there in this system in the Rays who turn out, you know, something into gold every single season. Calerio single-handedly had himself 4 stolen bases against the Mets today, including the game-tying run there in the 11th inning before they ultimately won it all on that same play. He gets on via walk. Jackson with a RBI single right after. It was a weird play by Brett Beatty. It was a chopper. Brett couldn't get to it there at the hot corner. That allows a run to score. So, okay, it's a 2-1 ball game. Then after that, we see DeLuca with a fielder's choice because of a poor play by Brett Beatty there. Allows him to get on base. Then we see Jose Siri with a sac bunt, moves the runners, and Mr. Yandy Diaz with a 2-run single gives the Rays a 3-2 lead there in the second inning. Again, the Mets just grabbed themselves a 2-0 lead, and just like that, they blow it now down 3-2 in this matchup. And if you're first chiming in live on a replay, happy to have you all in here, Mets fans, as we break down the latest in Mets land as a falter, an embarrassing, frustrating, pathetic fashion. Every type of wordplay you want to go with is valid after a series sweep, a loss like this to the Tampa Bay Rays, who, mind you, as things currently are constructed, I know the Rays were always going to be that scrappy team, but the Rays right now are looking like probably the 4th best team in their division as things currently stand. And of course, that is, you know, up to change as the season goes on here. But I digress. I break down further here. DeLuca with the fielder's choice that we discussed. Diaz with the 2-run single. It's a 3-2 Rays lead that we see there in the third. In the bottom of the third, Narvaez with the blue opposite field single. Nimmo with the hit by pitch. Marte then with an infield single because it hits off of Pepio. Pepio comes out of the game. The Rays bring in a reliever there. It's bases loaded, no outs. Francisco Lindor, and this is how you know it's the Mets, everybody. This was the most Metsian entire sequence to happen. Mets have bases loaded, no outs. Surely they're going to score at least a couple runs. Of course not. They tied the game, but that wasn't even an easy thing to do there with 2 outs. And it starts with Francisco Lindor, drives a liner right to the second baseman there of the Rays, and thankfully, Nimmo just gets back in time to avoid a double play with just a step or 2 of a lead. Ridiculous. Lindor, though, he lines out for the first out. Nimmo's safe, thankfully. Pete Alonzo, who's been absolutely horrendous over these past how many games stretch? He's only like 1 for his past 35 or so. Pete Alonzo there coming home to Tampa, nothing to show for it with his second pop out out of the day. Just a pathetic at-bat there. I love you, Pete, but you were not reading anything at all. And the biggest frustration with Pete Alonzo, similar to Lindor, is that when he presses unbelievably hard, and he just doesn't know how to stay in sync as an overall competent hitter. It's all or nothing with Pete Alonzo right now, and that's a bigger frustration. We know he's a slugger. We know that goes in hand with someone like him, but the bigger frustration is that when you're all or nothing, this inconsistently this early into the season, when you're already having plenty of other issues on your roster on the offensive end consistently, especially, it's a bigger bugaboo. We rely on you, Pete Alonzo, and you were single-handedly a rally killer to the Mets' demise and their series sweep here tonight against the Tampa Bay Rays. Alonzo with the pop-out that we would see there. DJ Stewart with the only man at the plate that actually knows how to command the strike zone, right? DJ Stewart has the best eye among all Mets batters currently. He's not swinging at anything, doing his best Daniel Vogelbach impression, but he also knows how to barrel baseballs, which is the best part. DJ Stewart grinds out an at-bat after being up 2-0 in the count. It gets to 3-2, and he gets a key walk to drive in the game-tying run. DJ, again, if you're not going to provide anything with the bat, at least make sure you're providing things with your ability to get walks the way that you did, and you do that yet again today. Thank you, DJ Stewart. Again, there were some positives to take away from this game on the offensive end. DJ Stewart, I'm just beyond impressed with his eye at the plate. I really am. I've been wanting to say this consistently for a while now. Over the past week and a half, 2 weeks now, DJ Stewart has just had me jaw dropped with how well he has had a command of the zone, and even when he is striking out, or if he is getting out, it's because he is swinging at pitches in the zone, and they are some solid pitches to either go for or to take. So give credit where credit's due. DJ had himself a nice RBI walk there. McNeil, of course, in a very McNeil fashion, strikes out to end the inning. For a guy that we're dependent on basically being north of a 300 hitter, it's not fun when you're the opposite of that at the moment. And on top of it all, you're swinging through pitches that contact hitters usually just don't swing through. Again, I digress. In the bottom of the third, folks, Calerio with a walk. Marte with a big catch to get a massive catch there to potentially avoid a run scoring off the wall there. And right as you see in the highlights there from Starling Marte, big catch to avoid a run. Calerio with a stolen base, however, and that doesn't matter because DeLuca with an RBI bloop single drives in the run, increases the Rays' lead there. So the Tampa Bay Rays, just like that, find themselves getting some runs scored, and a very frustrating one out of that. It becomes a Rays 4-3 lead there in the bottom of the third. As we get to the top of the fourth, Harrison Bader reaches on an error. Beatty with the single. Narvaez with an RBI single. Narvaez ties up the ballgame 4-4 here. Narvaez with his second hit of the day, but I'm sorry, Narvaez. What are you providing for me defensively? And I know that you're not at complete blame for all the stolen bases today, but Omar Narvaez continues to frustrate me because I do not like his game calling whatsoever, and he just is a guy that I want off this roster, if I'm being frank. The only reason why he's here is because Billy Epler gave him an $8 million option to exercise for the 2024 season, and now we're dealing with the same nonsense that we dealt with James McCann to an extent. The Mets just need to stop buying catchers in the free agent market because they are now 0-2 under the Steve Cohen era. Tomas Nido, if he was here this entire time over McCann and Narvaez, I don't think anyone's complaining because Nido is a better catcher than both of them. And he proved that, again, as we found later on in the ballgame, once he came back in there as a pinch hitter, and then, of course, a defensive replacement. But no less, it's a tie ball game, 4-4, as we see there. As we get to the fourth, and in the fourth, Bader with it reaches on an error. Bader with a single. Narvaez with that RBI single, as we mentioned. Then the Mets gain the lead, 5-4, thanks to Brandon Nimmo's RBI single. Lindor with a single again. It's bases loaded for Pete Alonzo, and Pete Alonzo does exactly what you'd expect Pete Alonzo to do. Double play to end the inning. Bases loaded, less than 2 outs. Pete Alonzo's second bases loaded opportunity today does nothing with it, and is single-handedly a rally killer. I love you, Pete, but you are so out of it right now, and I don't know what the answer is aside from you just getting back into your groove the way that we know every player does throughout a normal 162 season. But Pete Alonzo is far from the Mets. I shouldn't say far from the Mets' problems. He is amongst the bigger problems that they currently have in their offense as things are currently constructed at this point in the season. That's not okay. That needs to change and fast, or this Mets team is going to continue to falter as they are now 2 games below 500. The Mets, all it takes is losing 2 out of 3 against St. Louis to be another game or so below 500 before we know the Mets could be 4 or 5 games below 500 again. And I know it's a 162. You got a lot of baseball to be playing. That is very important. But what is also important is to try to avoid these stretches, and the Mets have been absolutely horrendous on a consistency basis since they won their series against the Dodgers. They have not been the same team since, and I promise you, and I told you guys this how many times, losing Francisco Alvarez hurts that much more. It hurts not only with the game calling, but it equally hurts too with not having that cannon of an arm. I know that a lot of guys were able to steal bases on Alvarez earlier into the season. Doesn't change the fact that Alvarez still has the best arm and the best pop time, I think we could rightfully argue, to get runners out at second and especially third base. I have a lot of faith in Alvarez's abilities to do that the way I don't to the same extent with Tomasito and with Omar Narvaez. So losing Alvarez certainly hurts right now. We're seeing it big time. It's not fun, but that's the unfortunate reality when you deal with injuries in a 162 season. But the Mets again gain a 5-4 lead there. In the bottom of the fourth, Palacio with a walk and a stolen base surprised absolutely nobody. And then at that point, another walk happens with Paredes. Randy with a fielder's choice and a stolen base. Thankfully, the Mets get out of that jam unscathed. But now the Mets, at that point in the game, when multiple stolen bases still happen, they've allowed 48 of 50 runners to securely command the base by stealing comfortably. That's a massive problem, folks. Okay, the Mets are the worst team in Major League Baseball in stolen bases allowed, where they haven't been contested well. They're the worst team in baseball in their walk rate, walks per 9. And this is a major problem that, if it continues, is going to absolutely continue to be the demise of this ball club more often than not. Because again, your pitchers are getting worked right now. You're not getting Jose Quintana not even going 3 innings for you the other day certainly doesn't help either. Christian Scott gives you a masterclass of an outing in his rookie debut, and the Mets give him a steaming pile of shit you call an offensive showing. And now we find ourselves series swept after the Rays walk and steal every single base imaginable to ultimately win this ball game. But to advance further on in this one, exactly what transpired here. After that fourth inning, again, the Mets get out of that jam. The Mets stay up 5-4. We advance a little bit later on the ball game. Severino's out after 5 innings of 4 earned run, 4 hit, 6 walk ball. I got to ask you all, folks, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate Luis Severino's start today? Because for me, I understand that Beatty didn't give him any help earlier on in the ballgame defensively, but 6 walks is inexcusable. I'm sorry. So for this, I love you, Sevy, but for this start in particular, I have to give you, I'm going to give you a 3.5. I'm going to give you a 3.5, 4. At absolute best. Not happy with Sevy today. The stuff wasn't terrible, just could not command the zone. And when you cannot command the zone and a team takes full advantage the way that the Rays do, you're going to lose the ball game the way that the Mets unfortunately did. But as we advance further on in the bottom of the 7th, Reed Garrett comes in at that point, just skipping over a couple innings because really nothing else happens there. Reed Garrett comes in, Rosario then with a single. He's out trying to steal, thankfully. A nice throw by Nito again. Nito, who comes in for Omar Narvaez later on this ball game, gets that throw out there, but it doesn't matter because Clario gets on base with a walk and then he steals second and third base right away. Thankfully, the Mets get out of that jam unscathed because Reed Garrett is an effing dog. But the point is that even when you're throwing out guys, the Rays' next guy is going to come up, get a walk, and then do the exact same thing. There is no winning in this situation, as we all saw, unfortunately. In the top of the 8th, then we see there Bader with a single, Beatty with a walk, Nimmo with a walk. Marte then grounds out to end the inning. The Mets had bases loaded, or at least 2 out and less than 2 out there. Nothing to show for it. Once again, very frustrating. They were having a 2-out rally work there to try to build on that lead. They were not able to do so, and that would bite them in the ass. In the bottom of the 8th, Marte with a beautiful outfield assist to double up the runner there on first after a big catch that you guys can see in the highlights right now. Perfect timing. Beautiful play by Starling Marte, who has had a boatload of outfield assists over this past week, including that massive series there going in extras against the Chicago Cubs as the Mets walked that one off in a very dramatic and exciting fashion. In the bottom of the 8th, Marte then, we talked about that, I'm sorry. And we get to the top of the 9th with 2 outs for the Mets. Top of the 9th, it's JD Martinez comes in for his first at bat of the day. DJ Stewart got the start over JDM there at DH, and that's something we can expect at least 1 game out of a 3-game set for the time being right now. JD gets on via walk. Tyrone Taylor comes in a run. McNeil with the walk as well, but the Mets, of course, cannot convert there with their runner in scoring position. Color me surprised. In the bottom of the 9th, as we get there with 2 outs, Randy with a home run off of Edwin Diaz. Randy, of course, is a big slugger. He hasn't been off to a great start this season. It's his 2nd home run of the series that we see there against the Mets right now, and that's very, very frustrating to say the least. But again, not all that frustrated with Edwin here. It was a .230 expected batting average home run. It's a home run in 15 out of 30 ballparks in Major League Baseball. Just unlucky unlucky there. He hung that thing big time, and that was ultimately the difference there. So Edwin Diaz, I love you, Edwin. You just didn't have it there on that pitch. It's going to happen. It's not the end of the world. You were not the reason why the Mets ultimately lost this ball game, but you unfortunately did play a factor into it, whether we like it or not. No less, Edwin gives up that bomb. He strikes out a batter after he gives up a single to Ahmad Rosario, and of course, Rosie does what Rosie does. He steals second base comfortably. The Mets go into the top of the 10th then. Tied ball game, folks, 5-5 with 2 outs. Brandon Nimmo stays safe after review. They initially called him out. He was safe because Yandy Diaz going to get the catch there. The relay throw, he drops the ball on the dirt first before he can properly scoop it. They initially review it and say, hey, he's safe. After umpire review, they call him, safe when he was initially out. I'm getting tongue-tied here. The Mets go on to score a run there with 2 outs, a massive run. Brandon Nimmo, who had been hit multiple times in today's game, got on via walk and provided some offense. Brandon Nimmo had an offensive showing today. Very, very, very happy with Brandon Nimmo on the offensive end, all things considered. He was far from the Mets' biggest problem today on the offensive end. But he brings that run in. Marte with a walk afterwards. The Mets don't score from there. They're up only 6-5 heading into the bottom of the 10th for Jake Diekman. And Jake Diekman, we love the Diekmeister, but when Diekman isn't looking right, he's walking everyone and their mother. And as we see here, Diekman comes in. Calero, of course, is the starting runner there at second base. The best base runner the Rays could have had imaginable there to kick off extras because he was the last runner on in the 9th inning, unfortunately. He steals third base. Very frustrating. You saw Francisco Lindor beyond bothered by that, rightfully so. Rorvit gets on with a walk, and then DeLuca walks it off after it passes Bader. Bader tries to make the diving catch, and Fairlow, middle center field there, maybe a little shallower. So not only are we frustrated with allowing a total 9 walks and 7 stolen bases, but a defensive miscue by Harrison Bader trying to do his heroics, there's a time and a place. And that was a time every single day of the week, and I'm curious what Bader's post-game comments are. I'm sure he shared them already by now. But for Harrison to not get in front of that ball and allow just the game-tying run to score, who knows if the Mets still lose in that instance. Again, the writing was on the wall for the Mets to be swept in this series, given the fact that they haven't won there since 2015. And in the dramatic fashions and the way that they lost in this series was, nothing short. It was a lot, and it was often, unfortunately. But even then, Harrison Bader, I'm not going to gripe too much, but that was a play where I really, really wish you did not dive there, because who knows? Maybe that runner at most gets to second base on that play, and maybe the Mets do avoid him from advancing and scoring, and Jake Diekman only allows that one run. We're never going to know now, but that Harrison Bader dive was the icing on the cake, the cherry on top, if you will, what was nothing short of a truly frustrating and pathetic showing where the Mets are swept in Tampa there by a final score of 7-6. Thank you so much for the donation, Anne Marie Helton. Thank you so much for the $5 holla. Anne says, this was a very frustrating game. They have to stop the steals. I 100% agree, girl. I'm with you on that one. We don't only got to stop the steals, we got to stop the walks. We got to stop everything in between. That has been the bigger problem for the Mets right now. Pitching-wise, the Mets have gone some big quality outs. We have seen that. But what we have not seen is the Mets getting consistency with length in their starters outside of Quintana, outside of Seving, those 1 showings. Jose Buto had a couple outings where he won 6 innings for us. Christian Scott going to the 7th inning in his first start in the big shows you why he is the future and the now of this Mets rotation. But outside of that, the walk rates are still through the roof that David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza and Germany Hefner need to work on right effing now. Things need to change on that front, and the Mets need to properly adjust a way to not allow these stolen bases. This was a Mets team that looked like a Little League team versus the Tampa Bay Rays team. A Tampa Bay Rays team that's dealing with the boatload of injuries right now, as we know. Yet again, it's that next man up mentality that they do so well that a lot of teams don't do nearly as well. The Rays know how to win ball games with small ball when they need to, and a Mets team that has some small ball, very, sporadic nowadays, didn't exemplify it nearly enough in a series where they absolutely needed to, with their backs against the wall, against a Tampa Bay Rays club that knew exactly how to have the proper formula to win, and it was all thanks to that base running and a great eye at the plate, and just not chasing. Not chasing will get you far, and that gave the Rays quite literally a series sweep in doing so. I do see a bunch of more comments I want to get to. Everybody, thank you all so much for chiming in live on our replay as we're bringing down the latest in Mets land, as the Mets unfortunately falter to the Tampa Bay Rays tonight by a final score of 7-6 in a very dramatic, very frustrating walk-off fashion, headlined by a lack of not only pitching competency where you can't command the zone, but a lack of ability by the pitchers and the catchers to prevent these runners from making that walk into a double, if not a triple. A lot of frustration on that front, to say the least here, but I do want to get on to some comments here. I see a donation from Pet Mets. I see a donation from Chuck. Thank you guys so much for that. Before I go further, everybody, trust me, it's for a good reason. I'm going to take a quick moment to check out our amazing sponsor of the channel at SoRareMLB, the best MLB fantasy game out there, folks, as I want to let you know we are picking our winners tomorrow, so your chance to enter, again, basically ends over the next 24 hours, and you gotta do it today or so, folks. For those that don't know SoRareMLB is the best MLB fantasy game out there. It is so much fun to play. You can build your team, and your team is built by virtual cards. Of course, think of MLB The Show when you're building, say, your own team, and you want to build your roster, be your own GM, be your own coach, play against your friends, buy, sell, trade cards on the market for real dollars that you can utilize in the SoRareMLB app and on your desktop, wherever you want to play. You enter weekly tournaments with the teams that you build, and how your team performs in said tournaments is based on how the players perform in real life. So if you had WardyNYM, if you had Francisco Lindor, if you had Christian Scott yesterday, if you had those guys on your roster, you're probably having a nice little tournament here, and you can enter around 2 weeks. You can enter around 2 tournaments per week, playing against not only your friends, should you wish, but playing against all people across the globe. And how you do in these tournaments is not only based on how the players perform in real life, it also goes in hand with how good are the cards that you have. Do you have rare cards in which, say, a guy hits a home run, the percentage on the times multiplier will be higher because that card is more desirable. You're buying them on the market. Really no different than, say, if you guys know MLB The Show and know that formula, it's very similar, being your own GM and building your own roster, and of course trying to win with how guys perform in real life, with that being more the difference of the fantasy aspect coming into play. But if you guys and gals sign up today by clicking the link down below and joining a tournament, any which one that you want to enter, make sure it's at least a common tournament, where you can enter. Again, you don't have to spend $1 if you don't want to build your roster right away. Enter a tournament, and you're automatically entered for your chance to win 2 Mets tickets to any games you want to go to this season. We will be announcing the winners in the next day or so, around May 6th, if not May 7th. We're going to be picking 3 people to win 2 Mets tickets for any games they want to go to, and one winner will get a $100 credit to, in fact, utilize to build their SoRareMLB roster, however which way they'd like to do so there in the marketplace. But shout out to SoRareMLB once again, as always, for being an amazing sponsor, and good luck to everybody today that has signed up and that will sign up for your chance to win those tickets. Also, apologies in advance for having the intro running again for a second there, everybody. Let me get to your comments, questions, and concerns that you got for me, folks. As you see here, the pitching was frustrating, to say the least. Just look at it with me, everybody. Sean Reed-Foley was a big Bulldog iron today. Had a jam, got out of it. Love that we saw there. Jake Diekman, of course, did what he needed to do there. Before it was Diekman, I want to make sure that I don't have this messed up. Who was pitching? Edwin Diaz was there. It got cut off because of the SRF text is too long for the graphic to handle. Jorge Lopez did what he needed to do. Reed Garrett did what he needed to do. Again, the Mets pitching bullpen-wise has still been nails in a lot of ways. Put aside the Edwin Diaz home run, they're still getting the job done. Jake Diekman, though, was pretty much a Jake Diekman that I'm not surprised by right now. He can be very Jekyll and Hyde in his outings. He was fantastic with the Rays last year. It's funny enough that the Rays end up beating up on him as easy as they did, and ultimately to win this one with DeLuca. Well, of course, this was like his first series of the year facing the Mets, because why wouldn't it be? But overall, some solid production from the relievers there, all things considered, by the Mets, that I'm curious to know your thoughts about. Feel free to let me know on the live show. And for people watching replay, drop the comments. Same applies down below. Pet Mets, thank you so much for the $20 holla. Pet Mets says, with their struggling, the number one issue is getting a catcher that can at least slow down teams just running wild on them. By June, we should get a feel if the core's real impact is what we saw in 2022 or 2023. Not only that, but it's important to make sure we deviate from 2022 and 2023. I think a bigger problem, folks, that goes in hand with McNeil being extended and with how the Mets core group is viewed the way it is because of the success the Mets had in 2022. I will be the first to tell you, even though many people can agree with this, the 2022 Mets core has set this Mets team back slightly and how their viewpoint was. The Mets should have never went in the way that they did in 2023 because it was a recipe for disaster right from the jump that we all saw. And the Mets were a year ahead than what they are right now on having the right foot forward with building the roster, not only the lineup, but the entire organization, they'll be in a much better spot. Unfortunately, that isn't the case right now. And the reality is the Mets offense that, again, scored 6 runs today, but how did they score those 6 runs? Pete Alonzo 0 for 5 is inexcusable in a game like this where you need him to step up. Jed McNeil with 3 strikeouts is inexcusable for a guy that's supposed to be your leading contact hitter. These things cannot keep flying, and they're going to continue to drive me up a wall until changes are made, either by the players or by the organization themselves. Let me make sure I'm focused here because I know I'm a little blurry at the moment. I apologize for that, everybody. And I greatly appreciate everyone that's been chiming in the live show. I know we're very hot-headed. It's a very frustrating loss tonight, and I'd love to see your thoughts and break them down together. And I cannot wait to hear your thoughts starting next week, as I will start to take live callers. Long overdue what it took them today, but I don't want to talk about this game, man. I'm just so frustrated with this team right now. I know they're a 500 ball club. I know that even when they're below 500, hopefully they don't drop too far. When they're above 500, I don't expect them to get too far ahead. They're going to teeter with this roller coaster, these ebbs and flows of up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. That's just unfortunately how our season is going to go with how this team is currently constructed. Pat Metz, thank you for that donation. I really appreciate that too, my friend. Hope you're having a great one. Chuck, thank you so much for the $10 holla. Chuck says, what horrible thing did I do in my past life that ended up with me being reincarnated as a Mets fan? I asked myself the same question. You guys know I'm a diehard fan. Truly, I'm a diehard fan, folks. If I did not have the internal fandom that I had, I would have already jumped ship right now and started covering a different team for a living that I know is more entertaining, that has a solid fan base where I know that they could get behind, and I know that that's a consistent thing that I could be doing that isn't involving with the Mets. But I purposely don't do that because I'm a diehard Mets fan. I live and die with this team, and at the end of the day, I'd rather go through these ebbs and flows with my fellow Mets fans together here as we build a community, and build an awesome platform that we have built, the #1 platform for metropolitan coverage, not directly affiliated with the Mets or SNY, even though I was just with Dexter Henry on SNY New York Post sports segment that you guys can check out, a little clip on the channel, and it's available on the New York Post sports channel on YouTube as well. Aside from those things, we have an awesome thing cooking here. It's all thanks to you amazing Mets fans. We go through hell and back together, and I like to say that, you know what, if I'm going to be really upset tonight, at least I'm not the only one, and at least we're grieving together. That is always the biggest takeaway for me. Have a beer on me. We need it the way this team is playing, and thanks for all you do. Chuck, thank you so much for the kind words. I think you need it just as much as I do, if not more, my friend. But seriously, thank you so much for the donation. Greatly appreciate that. And yes, every time I get frustrated with the Mets, I look at my dad, I'm like, you did this. You did. I'm too loyal. I'm too loyal to break away. Maybe it's a sickness. Maybe it's an illness when you're a diehard fan and all your favorite teams just leave you in heartbreak and misery year after year after year for extended periods of time. But you know what? It shows the loyalty that fans have, and that's why you can never replace the fans. Because without fans, the teams don't exist. This entertainment factor simply doesn't happen. The sport doesn't exist, and we're just going about our day probably a lot less stressful. But still, we look for sports as an escape. We look for sports as a way to find comfortability, to find happiness, and to find short-term appreciation for things, especially if we don't have a lot of other great things going on in our life. And I understand that you shouldn't be heavily relying on sports to the degree where they make or break how you feel. That is not a healthy thing at all, and I don't recommend that to anyone. But I also know that when it comes to New York fans, including myself, it's very hard to separate the two. It is very, very difficult when you invest not only dollars, but you invest the amount of time that you do into following a team and something you're very passionate about. So to all those diehard fans out there that, again, go through hell and back with the team, no matter what happens at the end of the season, you will be back next year. You will be following along. You will be cheering and crying for them. I commend every single one of you, and I'm happy to be in the same room as you because you guys are, again, what makes this all possible. Thank you again for that donation, Chuck. I appreciate that. And again, folks, continue to let me know your thoughts about the laps as we see there. Such a frustrating loss, guys. Just such a frustrating series. So, the fact that the Mets have now went 3 weeks. Edwin Diaz's outing tonight was the first time that he was in a save opportunity in 3 weeks. Literally 3 weeks. And he gives up the game-tying bomb because that's just our luck right now. That's just what we're dealing with. Let's see here. I want to definitely answer a bunch of your questions in the chat, folks, before we get on to wrapping up the ball game. WardyNYM having a bad day, okay? First, my Orlando Magic blow 18-point lead. That's what happens when you're a Magic and a Mets fan. You're literally asking for hell to brew. But all jokes aside, Daniel, I know it's not a fun day for you. Sorry to see that, my man. CP, thank you for being in here. We're good now. We'll be good. Yeah, we will be good. But again, though, I think as a collective unit, we just need to have these discussions sometimes. Because trust me, you guys know how hot-headed I get. And that isn't me bullshitting. That's literally me trying to compose myself. You guys should see me off air when I prep these shows, how hot-headed, how fuming I am. Sometimes I'm calm and I'm like saying to my head, mother, you know what? I'm just going ballistic. Other times I really can't hold it. And I'm literally just screaming my head off, saying a lot of profanity as I'm like, you can hear the keyboard, how hard it's stomping from me typing, and I'm messing up a graphic, and I'm getting beyond pissed off because I go edit that graphic. I want to start the show right away. I'm just so frustrated that the game ended the way it did. I know this feeling, Mets fans. It's not fun, and we go through it together. But what I can tell you is that the same way that we were riding high on that 12-3 run is the same way that we will ride high together the next time that the Mets have a good run going. It just isn't happening right now. They have major flaws at the moment, and this team, again, heading to Tampa, they shouldn't have went to begin with. They should have actually said, you know what? We don't need to bother going to Tampa. Maybe can we meet in the middle? Can we meet at a neutral site between us or something? Because something about Tropicana and that garbage-ass field has been the Mets' demise more often than not. There's a reason why they have not won there since 2015. Let's not forget, and I emphasized it in a previous show a day or two ago, Michael Conforto and Jeff McNeil both getting hurt with their hamstrings, going down the first baseline or so against the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm pretty sure Conforto even had a booted ball in Tampa if that wasn't Miami. And it's just so frustrating because we've just seen a lot of bad memories happen against the Tampa Bay Rays. Very little good in my young fandom, at least. I don't know about you guys. CP, exactly. You know how we feel, how we're going about this. Well, then you're not a real fan. What did someone say in the chat? Let me catch up here. I want to see what you guys are saying before I wrap things up. I really just want to answer your comments, see how everyone's feeling after a frustrating loss like this. And I don't know if I'm going to cut things off for people on replay or not. I might just keep this as a more of a long-winded show today. We'll see. Hell no, Tyler. If I'm a fan going nowhere, you aren't going anywhere. That's true, Daniel. No, that's true. You're right. Yankees fan base will take you anytime, Wardy. I know. Here's the thing. I know other fan bases would take me. That's the hilarious thing. Yankees fan base, I don't know about that one. I want nothing to do with Yankees fan base, if I'm being frank. Mets fans can be absolutely horrendous when things don't go right, but the obnoxiousness and the confidence behind Yanks fans that's so blind is something that I truly have no interest in signing up for. Not offending you, Jacob, but I'm talking about others. Same way that I know a lot of Braves fans would love if I did Braves coverage. You guys have no clue. A lot of people would love Braves coverage, but I'm not going to do it. I can't. Trust me. There's been a thought before, like, this could be lucrative. I really could just up and jump ship and start talking about the Braves every day. But I won't do it because I am a sick individual, and I love you guys too much, and I love this team too much. And the thought of seeing the Mets win, the thought of the Mets having a positive playoff run, the thought of the Mets having any significant success is something that I desperately want to be a part of and share my reactions and share with you all in this awesome community. That means probably more than most to me. Outside of the awesome family that I'm currently building, that's off screen, that's off air, that's going on, which is why I don't got the typical backdrop. Your boy's on the move at the moment. Outside of what's going on in my personal life, what's very personal and what means a lot to me is to see this team have success and to be part of that ride, not only as a fan, but also as a creator that has a privilege of, getting at times, honestly, some access to things that the average fan doesn't get access to, and also just, taking full advantage of every opportunity given to me that has to do with the Mets. Those are things I'm very grateful and appreciative of. But one thing I'm not grateful and appreciative of is the reality of being a Mets fan. And this is what it comes with. You get a lot of frustration, you get a lot of head scratching, you get a lot of heart palpitations. But at least I'm not the only one. That's what I like to say. At least I'm not the only one. Braves fans are way too busy watching Mets live streams. You're 100% true. 100% true. I know there's some Braves fans watching this right now. You know who you are. Even if you don't want to come out the woodwork, we have them every single show. Some of them are awesome. Some of them I can't stand. But that sounds about on par. Let's see. Someone said they're cutting bait and they're leaving. In the chat. Is that what? No, I didn't say I was cutting bait. Oh, I see. Richard. I got you. There's just a convo going on in the chat. My mistake. I missed it. Sorry about that, guys. Worry props to you, brother. I see your interview going big time. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot, Daniel. It means a lot. Let's see what happens when JD gets it together. I'm excited to see JD Martinez on full cylinders. I'm excited to see Francisco Alvarez back, hopefully batting behind JD Martinez in this lineup. I'm excited to see a world where there's a certain infielder no longer on this roster, and I think you know where I'm getting at there. there's just a lot of things I'm excited to see that we're not at yet. But we cannot forget jump ship to ATL. See, we already got the Braves fan in the chat saying it. They want it so bad. Final thing I'll say, Braves, and I say it all the time, it truly pisses me off. I think that's one of the things that edges me on ever so slightly. The Braves don't have one single schmuck that does anything remotely close to what I'm doing. They have Locked On Braves coverage, which is, the Locked On Network, where they have it for every team. It's nightly recaps, but it's not nearly to the extent of kind of what we do here. It's not nearly as reactionary and really being as fan interactive. It's more of just a podcast you can watch. And, I only care about that so much because I love interacting with you guys. I think that's a very important aspect to what I do here. But then the other part is, all the other ones, there's this one guy that's okay, but he's not consistent. Literally, I actually had Dodgers Nation, shout out to my man D-Mac, hit me up a couple days ago asking if I could relay a Braves YouTuber his way. And I relayed a couple, but there's no one, like this Mets space is the biggest space outside the Yankees for any type of coverage, whether it's podcasts, whether it's individual YouTubers. Mets probably have the biggest space for exactly that, or second most, only trailing the Yankees, I'd imagine. Outside of that, not a lot of teams have consistent coverage of all aspects of the club with like a diehard, young, energetic fan. I really hope the Braves can find that person, because as soon as that happens, I want to collab with them. And I want to have heated exchanges. I want things to get intense with this rivalry again, so that way we can talk hella shit on each other. And absolutely, if say the Mets get cooked, I have to deal with that. The Braves get cooked, he has to deal with that. That's what I want. But I have yet to find that individual. They are still not out there. So Mets fans, whoever you're a fan of, that is going to wrap up the live show. I want to thank you all so much greatly for watching. I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to interact with me today. This was a frustrating game, to say the least. I think Gate 14 does a decent job. I'll check them out, Cold Take. I might not know who they are, actually. I'll double check on that one. But thank you all so much again for the kind words. I was looking for this channel. I was late. Elephant, it's okay, my man. I'm sorry if you just chime in the live show. Go back on the replay and watch everything that we just ranted about for the past 40 minutes or so. That'll certainly help. But thank you all so much for watching. We'll be back live tomorrow. We'll be back live the next day. We'll be back live the day after that. Mike Jones, I haven't seen you until now. You like to wait until it's at the end of the show sometimes, I feel like. Happy to have you in here, no less. Thank you all so much for watching. Mets lose a heartbreaker by a final score of 7-6. We'll be back live with coverage all throughout the week. And until then, have a great rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. This is your boy Wardy, signing out. Let's go Mets, baby.